In your opinion, what do you think are some of the best places, countries, or jurisdictions for startups to launch? Obviously, maybe you're biased towards being in France and where you are,
Highly
but
biased.
Yeah,
Highly biased, but it's an intellectual bias and an emotional bias at the same time. So I'd say, I first of all, I've worked in at least 30 different countries in the last 28 years.
Okay.
Clearly, what drove me early on in my career was the US. I worked in Latin America, in Central America, in other parts of Europe, and everybody has their opinion on that. So clearly, I'm going to be subjective about what I'm going to be saying. We as a team did a lot of research in 2017 prior to deciding on France. And we had 4 or 5 candidate countries in which we wanted to settle. And we ended up settling on France after Emmanuel Macron became president of France and radically changed the landscape for startups, coined the term, English term for France, the startup nation, created the French tech label, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I would challenge anyone today into a debate as to which country has done the most and is offering the most for early stage startups. And I would challenge them and probably come out a win. I'm a former fighter, so either way I'm going to win. But in this case,
what were the 4 countries before I say that? What were the 4 or 5 countries that were on your list?
So in Europe, you definitely need to look at Estonia, right? Very proactive. Everything is decentralized. You can create a company within 45 minutes, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're looking to raise money, there's always going to be, former Yugoslavia, for those of us who are old enough, right? Question mark, right? Small country. If you're building something for the Estonian market, can you really scale it across Europe first, then the rest of the world?
Right.
That's an issue. I would say even a small country like Macedonia, 2 million people, right? Very proactive, highly skilled engineers coming out of top engineering schools at a low cost, which is important.
Yeah.
But all things considered, France is a sizable market, 67, 68 million people. It is the second largest economy in the EU zone. It has tremendous startup incentives. If you look up French Tech Investor Visa, you have talent passport visas. For example, it took me 2 weeks to get my Panamanian engineers to France, quote unquote, import them. The day they came, the next day the kids were in school. They were still jet lagged. They came with 5 kids, 3 and 2. Right. So a lot of the barriers of entry, because if I mention anyone to the US right now or in Canada, you have to go to France because the French bureaucracy, et cetera, right? To a certain extent, that is still true. Nowhere near as much as it used to be. And what we do internally at Uniqorn, we take care of it all. So you don't have to worry about it. We hand you the keys. Here's your desk. Get to work.
In terms of growth levers, which helped you kind of grow your business, do you have any recommendation for other SaaS entrepreneurs? Maybe who have similar markets as you, similar kind of target audience in the B2B, kind of B2C space. What have you seen, work really well for you guys?
So the really interesting thing about our business, and I think this is true for all businesses, is that the marketing channels change over time. In those early days, you can do a webinar with 50 people and make enough sales where it actually like moves the needle. So early days, we were doing lots of webinars. We had an affiliate program that worked pretty well. Getting our customers to refer their friends, that sort of thing. Getting people to blog about us, create YouTube videos about us, et cetera. But in the backbone of all of that was our content marketing machine. So we now have 5 people whose full-time job is to create articles, videos, guides, tutorials, tools, et cetera for us. So content marketing has been a big source of customers and leads for us. And that was really important for me when we started that about 3-4 years ago. Was SEO and content takes a lot of time, and this is a business that I want to build over the next 100 years. Obviously I won't be here, but over the next 100 years. So I needed to establish that really early, and I wanted to be the sort of leading voice for the creator community. So I think for any SaaS business, content is just killer. But you got to start it early, and it can take a year or 2 years to really build up. So that's kind of been mostly where we focus most of our time. But in the last few years, we've actually been spending a lot more money on paid marketing. So paid marketing wasn't working for us in the first few years, but now it's a huge source of new leads for us.
Makes sense. Have you? What would you say are maybe the biggest failures in your growth strategies? I know you mentioned you've done some product launches. maybe not a failure, but have you done any kind of other experiments that you said, you thought would work and maybe isn't worth it for your business?
Yeah, definitely. But I would say that one of the important things to do is, the thing that didn't work last year could definitely work this year and could definitely work the following year. So we're constantly like retesting things that haven't worked for us. As example, paid marketing didn't work 2 years ago for us. So similar things, like we launched a podcast. We spent almost $50,000 producing it, did a whole season. That really was a bust.
Really?
Yeah, I think like we didn't have enough distribution probably, and I think we got under 1,000 listens per episode, which is fine. But I think we were hoping to at least, maybe break even on it or something like that. So that was something that sort of failed for us a couple of years ago. But I don't necessarily think, like, I think we could revisit it in a year or something, and maybe it will work. What else? We've had things that we like, for example, we ran an online conference last year, which more than broke even. But we're really excited about running it again this year and using all the things that we learned from that original conference and making it better and hopefully making it even more profitable for us. But yeah, we're, constantly revisiting every growth strategy.
No, makes complete sense. And what would you say are some of the biggest challenges right now, you'd say, in terms of growing or scaling your Podia?
So I think, there's a bunch of different ones across, every department. In the product and the development department, the biggest things for us is that, we have a very technically complicated product. We've got a lot of things going on behind the scenes. So to continue to make it really simple for our customers to use, but also to continue to add additional like features and functionality to it, there's this very big balance that we're having to sort of weigh. Like, we add this new feature that makes the product more complicated, but also has higher impact. So there's this big product development balance that we're facing right now. But it's been going great, and I think we're treading the line very carefully. In terms of sort of more the business as a whole, we're hiring a bunch of different positions, mostly lots of developers right now. But it's hard to find great talent, in tech. It's just difficult.
Sure.
And, especially for us, we were a fully remote company since day one. And it was very easy for us to differentiate ourselves in the hiring market because, like, if you want to work remote, come work for us. But now, like, every company is remote, and a lot of companies are going full remote. So there's way more competition for job postings. But we have a really great place to work. So we do get a lot of like good applicants. And then on the marketing side, it's really just about, continuing to scale all of our channels, and, seeing better numbers this quarter than last quarter.
Of course. Yeah. Cool. So if anyone's listening and looking for a job, reach out to Spencer. They're hiring.
Rails developers.
Rails developers. Awesome.
Who is the ideal profile of founders that you're partnering with? Like, do you have a specific skill set or experience that you look for that you found to be working best, and end up succeeding better than others?
Well, yeah, it's funny. Like one of the biggest tells for me normally is if somebody's very secretive, then it's normally like it's a sign that they're going to be very hard to work with, because I think that it's one thing to come with me and say I have the cure for cancer, right? If you have that, you shouldn't even talk to me. Just go patent it, and you'll be fine. Right? There's some ideas they have the market waiting for them, right? Most other ideas that we all get, they're kind of lame, and then there's some of them that have some potential to be good businesses, some to be amazing business, some to be really really big century businesses, right? But one thing that I always found as an early warning sign, but who I don't want to work with at least, is somebody who thinks that they come with their the encrypted PowerPoint file, right? Where it's very hard to even get it, and you have to the NDAs. They're really, really, really secretive, because that also means that whatever they've tied the whole thing up against, and the success of something, it's very fragile, because the idea it's never going to be the thing that's going to make it successful. It's always going to be how it gets treated and how it gets nurtured, as I said, right? And so that needs to be open and free, and people need to have access to that, right? Otherwise, you can't actually do much with it. Then that idea is so amazing that it's going to go to the sky. So that's definitely somebody I'm trying to avoid. Another one that I'm generally kind of that we're kind of trying to avoid are people who are how can I put this in a nice way? People who come with a preconceived notion exactly about what it is that needs to be built and just think that we're an agency, right? That's the other kind of people that we don't work with because they become a problem for a lot of different reasons. But one of them is that, that our kind of, the reason why somebody should partner with us is our ability to look at your idea and look at what works and what doesn't work and kind of help you massage that into something that is then useful, right?
Makes sense.
The best people we work with is, there's two types of people that I really love working with. One is the completely like, I've never done this before, but I have a great insight, or I have this, idea that I want to do. I'm not exactly sure how to do that. Like that's a perfect example of something that's really good to work with, because a lot of our experience can really help them very quickly, take this, insight or idea or kind of business market they want to attack, and really quickly, establish something and get it out there. And then the other one is the very numbers driven,
analytical,
numbers driven sales guy, right? That just looks at the numbers and it's kind of doesn't really care about, being secretive and all these other things, but just like look at metrics, and it's really good at measuring. It has a very good intuition around how to approach this, right? Like they can look at something, they know what to derive out of that. They're almost, I think that they're probably my favorite to work with, because they're very opposite in many ways of the kind of person that I am. And so like that complements each other really well, because I could then take some of the more fuzzy parts, right, and add to whatever they comment. So they provide the insights and the analysis of the data, and then I can kind of help them, or we can help them basically, approach that, right?
Yeah, so don't be closed-minded, folks. Don't be secretive. Come in there with an open mind, and I have that same problem. I'm very analytical, so I look at numbers, data-driven decisions. That's a lot of my thing. So I like to partner myself and be around with other I'll say creative folks, such as Alejandro, our producer, to help kind of balance that out. And I find that helps a lot. Do these founders, are they coming to you with the idea and say, hey, let's do this? Or are you also going to validating the idea with the corporations? You talk to Skype and say, hey, Skype says we have this problem. And then you go out and find the right entrepreneur to say, hey, can you execute on this with some cash? Here's some equity and a team around you to go and execute. Or is it, which one is it? Or is it both?
It's actually, to be quite honest, like obviously one of the first things that you need to do, whether you build a VC or a venture studio, or especially a venture studio or a VC, or if you want to be an angel investor, is that you need to build to make sure that you have the right people come by you and introduced to a lot of ideas. So the first thing that we've been trying to do, obviously, is to make sure that if people have these ideas, that they know where to go, and that could be one place could be to go to us, obviously. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing, and then obviously after that it becomes a question of who you work at, introduce you, and they have as I said, like an insight from an industry. They might be in recruitment or something like that. They might have an insight there. So they'll come to us. They have an initial idea. We help them look at that and say, okay, is this the right way to approach this? Is there another way we could be doing that? Other times, they, as I said, might have a market they want to attack, and they understand the market really well, and they know what is required to build something in that market. Also there, I would say that our primary function with them there would be to basically help them build that can be, how do you call that? So basically help them build stuff that could be done in a way that very few other people can do, because they don't have this kind of background that we do to approach these kind of products.
Makes sense. And then kind of just on adding to that last point of where we were talking about some underrated growth strategies that maybe people don't think to apply to their startup, and they come to you because you have those 2-3 skills. Keep it simple, really good copywriting, with a nice design. Is there anything else that people can look at when they're first starting off that could make the big difference?
To be quite like, it's basically so like if you want to start a marketplace, for instance, just as an example, one of the things we normally suggest is start a mailing list, right? There's like some really simple ways where you can very quickly get up and validate whether you even have a business. I think that's one of the first things actually that a lot more people should be thinking about. You don't necessarily need an app to begin with. You might just need or a website for that matter, right? Or you might be able to do your whole service just doing text, right? So there's to begin with, it's like what really matters is you're trying to figure out whether there is a business here or not. When there's some people who's willing to either spend time or spend money to participate in whatever it is that you're trying to build, right? And so if you can if you can validate that very quickly, then you can figure out whether it's even worth going to the next step. So I would say that's one of the primary pieces of advice I would always give is don't just assume you need an app or a website or something like that. Figure out what you're really trying to solve here or optimize or figure out, and then find the fastest way you can do that without even having to come to someone like us. You don't even have to do that, to be quite honest. Often, if you approach this Weekend Hacker, which is this kind of place for people to exchange skills. I'm a designer, I have design skills, but I need some development skills. That was started, literally I posted something on Hacker News, right? And then I had a mailing list set up, and before I knew it, I had like 8,000 people on the mailing list, right? And then after that, we turned that into a website, and we probably even did that too early, to be quite honest, right? But there's many things you can do, because at the end of the day, especially if you're building marketplaces or social networks, stuff like that, it's really about putting people together, giving them a forum to basically be in. When it comes to other types of businesses, tech business, stuff like that, again, it really comes down to, as I said, like clear communication, to be quite honest, and that could be done many different ways. Obviously, one of them is design. Another one is make something extremely easy to use. Avoid what we call empty dance floor, which is basically that when you log on to a service of some sort, that you don't feel that there's nobody there at all, right? But there's something to get you started, or something that keeps you engaged. There's a bunch of things you can do there, like when it comes to onboarding, where I would say that could help you tremendously, experiencing growth at least. And then, at the end of the day, build a company that where you understand why you build it, right? Where you can kind of your intuition works for you, that you can make right decisions, which I think is often underappreciated, because it's always about finding that market opportunity. You're looking for a specific market, but some people we work with, some companies, they came to us with one idea about wanting to do a advertising engine for the real estate world, right? And it was like an architect company, and then we started talking to them. It's like, well, what's your background? Like, do you have any technology background that allows you to build like this ad tech thing you want to do? And no, they didn't, right? And so we ended up, saying, well, what can you guys do, right? What do you actually have? What are your superpowers that nobody else have? And then we basically work with them towards something completely different, right? Which was like, they had a lot of connections to a lot of different types of experts, and that actually allowed them to kind of build a referral network for these types of people in the real estate world, right? So again, there's always these simple things that works really well, and then there is some clever things, the growth hacks that we all know about, that Airbnb did, or Reddit and stuff like that, obviously. But I think often it's like, keep it extremely simple and figure out if there's even a signal, if there's even somebody who wants your stuff. And then, if you find that with just one person, then find 2 people, and then find 4 people, and then find 8, and so that's, I think, would be my basic advice there.
So final question from my side, and I think it goes back to those early days of being an entrepreneur through hustle and trying to figure it out with very limited constraints. So I think constraints are super important, and it helps you kind of, forces you to make decisions a lot clearer and faster. So 2 things: you have a financial constraint and a time constraint. It's just hypothetical. Let's say you have $1,000, and you don't have your existing network of these corporations you can speak with and validate your idea. You need to build an MVP of your product. It could be very, very simple, but you have 2 weeks to go out there and get your first customer. Just one customer, you said, right? 1, then you get 2, then 3. Just number 1. Where do you allocate that $1,000 and time? Where are you focusing your time and money to make that happen?
Well, time-wise, well, again, obviously it depends on what kind of business, right? But so
Sure.
I would actually come back to my initial like weekend hacker example, right? Like that was, as basically setting up a mailing list, and then I never went out and I didn't spend $1 on that until I had to basically start paying MailChimp for having too many people in my mailing list, right? So I would probably start with something like that, to be quite honest. If I only had 1,000 there, I would find the cheapest way to establish a user base. And that would probably be something like a mailing list, right? And then I would try to figure out what could I connect people around. And then spend a little bit of time setting up a website. But even that kind of stuff today, again, most design is solved, right? It's not like that there's like some unique, way to have people be onboarded to your website. A lot of these design patterns are already established. So I probably would even be so lazy as I would go out and find an existing template, to be quite honest, of something. Just change, a little bit, have a logo, maybe change some colors, obviously do some work with the text, and then I would like figure out what I could convince people. Maybe I have $500 left. I would spend them on Facebook ads and Google ads and see, if there's any givers and takers there. I think that's the way I would probably approach that.
Nice. So build a simple page, get some email lists going on, and then find a way to drive traffic, paid $500 through Google or ads, and see if people are subscribing and gauging interest.
Something like that. That would be that would be the right way, I think, to approach that. And that because you can pivot 1,000 times with this, right?
Exactly. Thank you all for watching this episode and joining SaaS District today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for future episodes where we interview top leaders in the SaaS industry. If you're a SaaS company looking to grow and unlock the true value of your business, get in touch with us at Horizon Capital, and myself or one of our consultants will provide a free assessment to help you get there and hit your goals. If you have any feedback or suggestions for this podcast, please comment down below and help us improve our content for you all. Thanks again, and see you on the next one.